The next one's been on like 2 different TBRs, at least 2 different TBRs in the month of 2022. Oh boy. Hi everybody, my name's Kelsey and we're about to get very, very nerdy with books I wish I had read in 2022. So I've done this video in the past a couple of years ago, I think. I originally got the idea from Haley in Bookland. She does a like Vlogmas kind of video. She calls it Bookmas, and it's basically where she releases a video every single day in the month of December, and it's like her version of like vlogging every day. And this was an idea that she did a couple of years ago. Actually, I think she's done it every single year, so I'll leave her announcement for this year's down below because I believe it's in that one, but I'm not sure. So giving her full credit for this idea, but I have done this one before, and it's basically just taking a look back on the past year and books that I have put on TBRs or something that I just wish I had made time for in this past year and just didn't. I am going to do a part 2 to this video, which will be the next one that you guys see on this channel, and that is series that I wish I had made some progress in the past year. But I have 10 books to talk about, and these are the ones I wish I'd made time for this year. So the first one, actually a lot of these have been on TBRs before. The first one was on my very first TBR, and that is The Sound of Snow by Katherine Kinsley. This is clearly a historical romance that just feels all of the winter vibes. So I was hoping to get to it in January of this year, and it just didn't happen. So we're going to try again January of next year and see what happens. But this is one that I've never read anything by this author before. I never even heard anything by this author before. It has a beautiful step back in it, but it just gives me all of the winter vibes. So this follows our main 2 characters. We have Joanna and Guy, and Joanna has recently been on the continent, aka in America, and she was there because she was trying to escape gossip. I don't know what it was, it doesn't say, but there was some stuff that has been following her, so she went to America to get rid of it, or basically to hide from it. And it's been many years, and she has come back to England because her cousin has passed away, and she is convinced that her cousin's husband is the one who did this, who is Guy, and she's trying to save her nephew from whatever she thinks this guy is going to do. And so it follows her and Guy basically asks Joanna to be a governess because he can't get over the fact that she looks just like his dead wife, and then the son kind of blossoms under her tutelage, and it feels like there's a lot more to the surface. She thinks he did it. I'm not sure he actually did, but I don't think I have an audiobook of this one, so I had to have read it physically, and I'm really bad at reading books physically, so hopefully next year. But yeah, I really wanted to get to this one this past year, and it just didn't happen. Another one I wanted to get to was Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. This is a second, well no, he's written quite a few books, but I read House of the Cerulean Sea and really loved, and this is, I think, his most recent book after that one came out. There's been a few since then, but after that one came out, I believe this is the most recent one. I've been talking about trying to read this forever. I was trying to buddy read with my friend Lauren, and like we just never have made time for it. So maybe next year is the year that I can make time for it. But this one follows, I can't remember our main character, Wallace, and it basically takes place at this inn, and it's kind of this in-between life and death. So Wallace has passed away. I think the book starts with him attending his own funeral, and he's outraged because there's not very many people there. And so he's stuck in this in-between. It's called Karen's Crossing. I always say this wrong. It's the Greek name for the person who like ferries people across the sea in the world of the dead, and I can't remember how you pronounce it, but it's that guy. And so basically he has, I think, a week to figure out what he's going to do. And there might be a romance of sorts with someone at this inn. I'm not sure. But based on my past experience with TJ Klune, which has only been one book, I adored it. It broke me, and I'm expecting to cry like a baby after this one. And it's been out for quite a while. So I tried to get to this many times in the past year. I think I put it on a couple of different TBRs, and it just didn't happen. So hopefully, I don't know, maybe next year. I keep saying maybe next year for all of these, but who knows. But this is one that I just didn't make time for. The next one is one that I actually don't physically own quite yet. I have ordered a special edition of it. It's just not here. And that is I never can remember this right. The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. This is a book that I actually have the arc of, and I loved the first, like, I feel like I made it 20% of the way through this book, and I just couldn't make time for it. And it sounds like so much fun. It follows our main character, whose name I'm blanking on right now, but she is a witch, and it takes place in this world where, like, witches are secret. No one really talks about them, but she has a YouTube channel where she's really popular because she pretends to be a witch online, and she's actually doing magic in her videos, but she portrays it in a way of like, look, I'm doing magic, and everyone's like, oh, she's not really doing magic. And so there are this house off in the estates, and they are housing three young witches, and so they basically hire her to come teach them, nanny them, so that they learn how to use their magic. And they are very explosive, is not the right word, but they have a lot of like energy, and they're not trained, and so she's there to train them. And there is a librarian in this house, and the librarian does not think highly of her. He's really stuffy and kind of is very protective of everyone in the house, and I think it's a romance between the two of them. But it gives me the vibes of House of the Cerulean Sea, so I'm sure I'm gonna love it. I just didn't make time for it. It felt like a nice witchy book to read at the beginning, so like in August, and it just didn't happen. So this one I really want to get to soon, because I want to read this one. I think it's going to be so good. And I ordered the Fairy Loot Special Edition, so hopefully that'll make its way here at some point. It's also purple, which is my favorite color, so I can't wait to see that in person. But this is the one that I definitely didn't make time for. I started it, so that's better than most of the books on this list. The next one is one that a dear friend of ours gave me, and that is A Touch of Darkness, and this is by Charlotte St. Clair. This is the first in the Hades and Persephone series that she has. I believe it's a trilogy. It is basically a modernized retelling of Hades and Persephone. It took the world, the internet world, the TikTok world, bookish world by storm. I think not last year, but the year before. And so I'm really behind on this. Everyone seems to love this book. I even have another book by this author, King of Battle and Blood, which is the first of a different series or trilogy of hers. That one is kind of vampire. This one just feels like it's going to be right up my alley. It's got all the things I expect to love from this. It's a Hades and Persephone retelling. I love Hades and Persephone retellings. I love Greek mythology retellings, but them specifically, I just love those. It is modernized, which I always find interesting when they modernize Greek mythology, and I'm told it's very, very smutty. So it's got all of the like ticks right there in the box for me. So I don't know a whole lot about it. I feel like it has to do with like, it is modernized in the sense of like it's set in a modern setting, but like Persephone is still the goddess of spring, things like that. But it sounds, I don't know, it just sounds like it's going to be so much fun. So I didn't make time for this one, but I really wanted to read it. Like, I had it in my sights a few times, and I just didn't do it. I just didn't make time for it. All right, the next one is one that might look a little familiar, because I believe it was on my things that I wanted to read this fall sometime list, and that is Killers of a Certain Age, and this is by Deanna Rayborn right there. And it says on here, it's kill or be killed, but they've been at this a long time. So this is possibly a murder mystery, not really, but it's definitely a thriller. It follows 4 women who have been part of this elite assassin company called the Museum, and they are starting to become old news. Like I said, they've been there for like 40 years at this point. I'm thinking they're in their 60s and 70s, if I remember correctly, and they have just, like, they're using old tactics. There's more modern things now, and so they've been sent on this trip for retirement. It's the 4 of them. They've just been sent away, and all of a sudden an assassin shows up to kill them. So they have this person who's coming to attack them, and they're like, the only way out of this company is basically to be killed. So they're sure that their company sent someone after them, and so they are trying to use their old school ways to like beat this assassin, I guess, at its own game. I don't really know, but it's these 4 women who are being hunted, and it's supposed to be, it sounds very funny, and it sounds very amusing, and I feel like it's going to be so good. So I really wanted to get to it this fall, and I just didn't have time for it, but it's still really high up on my TBR. I'm still quite excited about it. The next one is one that I really wanted to get to in the month of August, because it's set in the month of August, and that is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. So this book came out this year. It was super popular. Everybody and their brother and their cousin's best friend were talking about this, I swear. And I've heard zero, absolutely zero negative things about this. But it's Emily Henry's most recent book, and I believe Emily now has a new book coming out in 2023, which I'm very excited about. So this book follows our two main characters, Nora and Charlie, and Nora is a book editor, no, sorry, a literary agent. And so her sister basically asks her to come on this vacation with her for the month of August just to get away, and she would do anything for her sister. So she does. And she also envisions herself as like the leading lady of her own story, and so like she's expecting all these like romantic Hallmark style moments. But she keeps running into Charlie, who is an editor from back in New York where they live, and they do not get along. They're kind of rivals, and so they keep running into each other, and so all of these super cute romantic moments that she thinks she's going to have with some strapping guy from this county ends up happening with him. And so it's a romance of the two of them, but it's full of all the book goodness that you expect from a literary agent and an editor, and I'm so excited about this. So I will not be waiting for August again. Like, I was going to wait for August as it takes place in August, but next year I don't want to wait. I want to just dive in, hopefully before her next one comes out, because I am slowly making my way through Emily Henry's things, and this is the only thing I haven't read yet, so I'd like to finish it before her newest book comes out. But literally everyone talked about this one, so I want to get to it. Another one is a book that I've had on my TBR for like 4 years. I swear. That's not true. It's only been a couple, and it's one that Chris bought me. And I am still so excited about this book, but my streak of reading things that he has bought me is terrible. So, hoping 2023 can fix it. I'm saying that like I'm going to read all of these books in 2023. It's not going to happen. I just have high hopes for myself. And that is The Double Vice, and this is by Chris Holcomb. This was on last year's fall TBR. It was on this year's fall TBR. It was on my November. No, it was on my October TBR. Like, it's been on so many TBRs at this point. I feel so bad for this book. But it is an indie book that takes place in the Roaring Twenties, and it's the first in what's called the Hidden Gotham novels, and it takes place in a gay speakeasy, and owner Dash Parker's birthday was supposed to go great. It's in New York City. It was supposed to be amazing, and one of his patrons ends up dead, and they're like, him and a couple of his friends are trying to figure out what happened, because it looks suspicious. It looks like it's murder, and all fingers may or may not point to him. I'm not sure if that's the case, but I'm sure he's a suspect, being the owner of the speakeasy. So it sounds like a very fun romance novel. It takes place in the 20s, which I do love reading about the Roaring Twenties. It's not my favorite thing in the world to read about. As you guys know, I love Regency England. Like, that's my go-to. But I do enjoy a good 20s novel, and it's a mystery. And it just sounds like so much fun. And I have not made time for it, and I feel so bad. So, maybe soon, maybe very, very soon, we can get this done, because it is an indie published book. I love some indie published books. The fact that he randomly found this, and it sounds like so much of my thing, and he just randomly bought it for me. Well, it was for Christmas, but like, I should have been better at reading this, and I wasn't. So maybe next year's finally the year. Oh man, I feel so bad. The next one has been at least 2 different TBRs this past year, and God, I really hope I can finish this soon, because I just want to. I'm obsessed with the first book in the series. I feel like I need to finish this one. And that is A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. And this is by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is part of her From Blood and Ash series. I have the first 3 in these beautiful Fairy Loot editions. I know there's more in the series. I believe at this point there's at least 1 more. But I only have the first 3. And I read the first one in April, I think. It was for the first round of Magical Readathon last year, so it would have been April, and I fell in love with these characters. It ended on such a cliffhanger, and it's been many months, and I still haven't read the sequel, and I just need answers. I just need answers, and I know I'm gonna love this because I loved the first one so much, and I just keep not making time for it. But this series has been pretty popular. It follows our main character, Poppy. That's funny, popular, Poppy. It follows our main character, Poppy, and she's what's called a maiden, and that's basically someone who is going to be sacrificed in some way. I say sacrifice, I'm not actually sure if it is sacrifice, but she's going to be given to the gods, and we're not really sure what that means. But it means that she cannot be looked at. She has to wear white the entire time because she's pure. She has to have her face covered. She can't be touched, she can't experience pleasure, she can't, like, have emotions. Like, it's basically she has to be a stone statue. And so this book really kicks off when she gets a new guardian, or a new guard, set to her named Hawk. And so that starts off a whole new set of circumstances. But I love Poppy as a character. I think she's fascinating, and I loved, loved the twist that we get at the end of the first book. It had me shooketh, if I do say so myself. So I can't wait to step into the second one. I know I've said that so many times at this point, but I really need to do it because I loved it so much. I know I'm going to adore the next two at least. So yeah, I just need to do it. The next one is one that I don't think I've ever talked about, but it's been in the back of my brain because the movie came out this year and I really wanted to read the book before I watched the movie. And that is Mr. Malcolm's List, and this is by Suzanne Elaine, I believe. It gives me the same vibes. The movie adaptation gives me the same vibes as Bridgerton as far as like the historicalness of it, the rom-comness of it, as well as taking a very different look on history, which Bridgerton does really well, and I very much enjoyed that. So this one is, I feel like it's a hate to love, if I remember correctly. So this, it even says so on the back, it's very reminiscent of like a Mr. Darcy character. It says, "Move over, Mr. Darcy, there's a new man in town," and then it literally starts with, "It's a truth universally acknowledged," which is the first lines of Pride and Prejudice. So this follows Jeremy Malcolm, who is very sought after as a suitor, but he wants to skip past all of the fortune hunters and anything like that. He's got a very specific list of what makes a perfect woman, and he's like, that's the person. I'm going to find this person that meets everything on my list, and I'm going to marry her. And so it follows him, and this woman's named Selena, who's a vicar's daughter, and she is invited to London by her friend Julia, and Julia basically has her partake in this scheme of sorts to get back at Mr. Malcolm. I don't know what that's going to be, but it sounds like a rom-com. I think I've read something by this author before, if I remember correctly, and I did quite enjoy it. So I'm interested to see what the book version of it's relatively short. So I really wanted to read this. Oh, you know what? This is an advanced reader's copy. I have an ARC. I didn't really even realize that. So I really wanted to get to this at some point before I watched the movie. I don't think I have any plans to watch it like really soon, but this was in the back of my head before I watched the movie. So that's still a goal of mine. It just, we'll see if that happens. And then the last book on this list is another one that I had in the back of my mind. It wasn't really one that I had talked about or really put on any TBRs, but it was always in the back of my mind. And that is Once Upon a Broken Heart, and this is by Stephanie Garber. This is the first in this series, and the reason it's so high up on my TBR is because the sequel was coming out, and I bought the sequel edition to match this Fairyloot edition, which has now come in the mail, and it's beautiful. It's the Ballad of Never After, and I really wanted to read this one before that one came, which clearly didn't happen. But I've never read a Stephanie Garber book. I've heard incredible things about this book. It sounds like it's going to be up my alley. It does sound like a YA fantasy, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't, but I have high hopes for this, and also these editions are just absolutely beautiful. So in this book, we follow our main character, Eveline Fox, and she's always believed in happily ever afters. And so Eveline is desperate because the one that she's fallen in love with is about to marry another, and she is not having it. So she makes a deal with the Prince of Hearts. In exchange for his help, she's going to give him 3 kisses to be given at the time and place of his choosing. And so she's like, okay, fine, whatever. And then I think there's something more to it because it says after the first kiss, she learns the bargaining with him immortal is a dangerous game and that he wants far more from her than she pledged. So does that mean that they're going to fall for each other? Does that mean that these kisses mean something different? Kind of like a Peter Pan situation where like Wendy thinks it's one thing and Peter thinks it's something else. I don't really know, but I've heard good things. I do believe this is connected to the Caraval series. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't remember if that's correct or not, which is not a series I've read, but I feel like you can read it without reading that. And the second one is just beautiful. Here, I'm going to grab it so you can see it. Just look how beautiful these are together. I mean, stunning. I don't know if there's any more or if it's just these 2. I can't remember if there's more after the second one. But it's just beautiful and I love them so much. So now that I have the second one, I have to read the first one. But yes, that's always been on in the background of my brain, but I've never actually like stated it anywhere. So maybe next year is the year that we state it and maybe do it. So that's it. That's the list of the books that I just really, really wish I had made time for in 2022, and it just unfortunately didn't happen. But I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please let me know if you've read any of the books that I have mentioned in today's video. As always, I want to know all of your thoughts on them, or if there's a couple of books that you really wish you had made time for this year, what would those be for you? And if you want to comment something but you're not sure what to comment, comment a heart for Once Upon a Broken Heart. Any color, any version of the heart emoji, comment one of those. But if you like this video, and I very much hope that you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe down below if you'd like to be part of this awesome growing family. I've also got all my social media down there as well as other fun bookish links, so check all that out, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!